What's up, everybody? It's Jason from Jiu Jitsu Five-O here to talk about 5 different things that every Jiu Jitsu beginner should know. So whether you are brand new to the sport or a white belt that is maybe has started training, you've been training a couple of months, I think it's really easy to get overwhelmed with all of the things that are involved with training and learning new information and techniques and all of that kind of stuff. So hopefully these 5 things will help you out and have you feel less overwhelmed as you start your jiu-jitsu journey, if you will. So, number 1, remember that training is a marathon, not a sprint, right? So if you are getting into jiu-jitsu thinking that you're gonna be like, you're gonna get your black belt in 3 years and you are gonna be the world's greatest grappler, you're not. So maybe you are, if you are, some prodigy and you're training 7 days a week, twice a day, you're probably going to advance a little bit faster. I would argue that you're going to get burnt out, but just remember that, again, why did you get into it? Remind yourself, why did you start training? Was it for self-defense? Was it for fun? Was it to get in better shape? There's probably a combination of those things. So if you can kind of go back to that and realize that all of the belt ranks and all of that stuff will come eventually, but it takes time. Everything in life worth having, I always say, takes time, and jiu-jitsu is no different. Getting your black belt is probably gonna take you 10 years, 12 years, whatever. But that's not why you started training jiu-jitsu, I'd be willing to bet. And if you can remember that it's a marathon and not a sprint, I think you'll feel less overwhelmed and not get burnt out as quickly, and hopefully not quit when you get your blue belt, like a lot of blue belts do. Number 2, remember that defense wins championships. So if you think about any good football team, like in the NFL, football teams that win the Super Bowl or even get to that level, they almost always have a really, really good defense. And I think that's applicable to jiu-jitsu because, if you're doing it for self-defense, obviously, if you are finding yourself in a situation on the street where someone's trying to punch you, choke you, kick you, put you in a headlock, it's important to understand how to get out of that, right, to create space and defend yourself. But on the mats, as it relates to jiu-jitsu, you're not going to be able to do any of the fancy, submissions and techniques and things that you see higher level people doing if you don't have a good defense, because you're going to get your guard pass. People are going to be able to easily put you in dominant positions, and it's going to be hard for you to escape. And you're gonna find that you actually probably don't like jiu-jitsu as much as you were hoping that you would if you don't have a good defense. So a lot of times newer grapplers will ask me like, hey, what should I be working on? And I will always tell them, be unsubmittable. Focus so much on being good at defense that you're the guy or gal in your gym that people can't submit, or they have a really tough time trying to submit, because that's gonna take you so much further in your training career or jiu-jitsu journey or whatever you want to call it. I just think that defense wins championships, and if you can get really good at defending, you're just going to be a better grappler all the way around. Number 3, kill your ego. You hear this all the time. You've probably heard me talk about it. You've probably heard other trainers talk about it, but it's true, and no disrespect to my dudes out there, but as a man, I can say with confidence that I think a large majority of us, especially in the law enforcement space, we tend to walk around with our chests out and we lift heavy weights and we talk about how tough we are and how we would kick everyone's ass, and if someone messed with me on the street, I'd beat their ass, all that kind of stuff, right? But unless you actually go do it, so whether that be rolling at a gym or getting a boxing ring or competing in Muay Thai, whatever the case, unless you actually do it, you don't know how you're going to react or respond in some of those situations, and you don't actually know how good of a fighter you are unless you practice and try those skills. But a lot of times what will happen is our ego will continue lying to us, and it's a lot easier for us to listen to that and walk around and tell people how tough we are and talk about how great of fighters we are versus actually proving it to ourselves. It's a lot easier to go lift weights and look intimidating than it is to actually know how to fight through constant training and getting your ass kicked on a regular basis. So if you're able to kill your ego, really for a lot of reasons in life, but specifically for jiu-jitsu. If you're able just to be honest with yourself, take the ego completely out of it and say, you know what, I don't know as much as I thought I did. I'm not as good of a fighter as I probably, as I think I am. I'm gonna go try a class. That's a great start. And you're gonna find that I think there are a lot of other benefits that will come from killing your ego and realizing that you don't know as much as maybe you thought you did. When I first started, or before I started jiu-jitsu training, when I was a new cop, I was probably a year on, I got into a fight by myself, I remember, and I was frisking somebody and they turned and they started fighting with me, and I was by myself, and fortunately I was able to sort of like overpower them and get the person, on the ground and hold them there until my partner got there. But after that incident, I thought to myself, like, what happens next time? Because I know there's going to be a next time. What happens next time if this person is bigger, stronger, or trained and they actually know what they're doing? Now what am I going to do if I encounter that? And I knew the answer was I don't know. And so shortly thereafter is when I went and I started researching like best martial arts for police, and I kind of went down those YouTube rabbit holes. But I found jiu-jitsu, and it immediately when I started training, I realized like, oh, this is absolutely applicable to what we're doing on the street. We're basically trying to control another person and submit them. And if you think about it from a police perspective, that's essentially what we're doing when we're trying to arrest and control, uncooperative subject. We have to get them under control and get them into cuffs. So we might not be submitting them, but we do have to get them under control. And you're gonna learn that through jiu-jitsu training. So I thought I was really tough at the time. I lifted weights, I power lifted, I was pretty strong, but I couldn't fight. And it took me going into jiu-jitsu class to really learn that. And now I'm a lot more confident in my abilities through my consistent training. It's not to say that, it's gonna make you invincible by any means, but you will develop a new set of skills that will increase your confidence, and it will absolutely come in handy, not only to defend yourself, but just in all of those instances where you just have to control somebody. You can do it with a lot less effort when you know what you're doing. So kill your ego, show up to the gym, do the free trial class, and then sign up and don't stop training. Number 4, fundamentals over fancy shit. So it's very, very common if you're a new grappler to see, your training partners at the gym doing like crazy high level stuff. They're rolling underneath each other, taking each other's backs, doing cartwheel passes, doing these crazy leg entries. Don't worry about any of that until you can, really focus on fundamentals. You're not going to be able to do some crazy 50-50 heel hook nonsense if you have no idea how to even, do a hip escape, or even like wrap up someone in a straight ankle lock for that matter. So fundamentals over fancy shit. And if you're looking for specifics on, what does that mean? What are fundamentals? Well, there's two big things I usually will tell people to focus on. Number 1, learn how to move. So hip escapes, over the shoulder rolls, technical stand-ups, all of that stuff might look silly when we're doing it on the mats to warm up, but it has carryover into the different positions and the ways that we move when we're on the ground, rolling around and fighting with somebody. So learn those, basic movements and how to do them. And it will also help you move more efficiently, so you're not gassing yourself out when you're fighting, because when you are brand new to jiu-jitsu or grappling, there's a tendency to really try to power through everything and muscle your way out of techniques. And you'll find when you do that, you gas out really, really quickly. And when you're exhausted, that can be a really bad thing, not only on the mats when you're training with somebody, but imagine in the street, if you're, overusing all of your muscle and you gas out in 30 seconds during a fight, especially wearing all your gear, that can have a really, really negative impact or negative outcome on that fight. So if you understand how to move efficiently, you're going to find that it also helps with, your cardio. It's going to help with mobility. It helps prevent injuries. There's a lot of great things that can come out of just understanding how to move your body. And then second to that would just be understanding the basic positions. So Jiu-Jitsu is kind of, I like to say it's infinite. There's so many different positions that you can find yourself in, and I feel like there's new stuff being invented all the time. But forget about that as a beginner and go back to the fundamental basic positions of Jiu-Jitsu. So, you know, mount, side control, back mount, knee on belly, half guard. Those things, understanding the little details and nuances of how to control someone from each of those positions is going to take you a long way. And then understanding how to sort of escape and defend yourself from each of those positions. That's a great starting point for you if you're wondering, like, what should I focus on, or what are some things I should be learning? Number one, how to move. And once you're comfortable with some of those basic movements, then really start focusing on those basic positions. You know, we obviously have a whole video series about it in our app if you want to check that out, where we talk all about fundamental positions and concepts and movements. And I think by focusing on that stuff, it will really help you in the long term, and really help build kind of a solid base and a solid foundation for your game. And then number 5, consistency beats intensity. And what I mean by that is, if you show up to class or you show up to train, you know, 1 day a week consistently for a year, you're going to learn so much more than if you show up 5 days a week and you go 100 miles an hour, balls to the wall, and then you take 3 months off and you don't do anything in that 3 months. You're going to forget most of whatever it is that you learned in those 5 days, versus the person that's there 1 day a week consistently for 12 straight months. You'd be surprised at what you can learn and how you can develop skills just in that short amount of time. Now, you may have more time to train than that, which is great. You know, personally, I try to train 3 days a week. That's usually my goal. Sometimes I'll try for 4 if my old body will let me do it, but 3 days is usually my benchmark. If I can do 4, great. You know, but when I was working shift work, I worked 12-hour shifts, so I would work 4 days on, 4 days off. I didn't have time to train during my work days, so I would just make a point, again, to try to train at least 3 of my 4 days off. Sometimes that was only 2, but that's okay. It was a weekly thing. And, you know, in my entire jiu-jitsu career, I guess you could call it, I've been training for 14 years. I think the longest amount of time I've ever taken off was 2 weeks, and that was because of like a vacation. Now, doesn't mean I'm fucking amazing by any means, but I'm using that as an example because if like you dedicate time to something, it doesn't have to be all in all the time. It just needs to be consistent and not super intense. So, and you'll see those guys that, you know, and gals that will come in and maybe they're all in right away. It's super common. If you're brand new to the sport, you get really excited about it and you want to be there all of the time, and you start training 5-6 days a week and you do that for a month, and eventually you just get burnt out because there's so much information being thrown at you and you're learning so many new things, and eventually you're just kind of like, your brain wants to explode because you're like over, what's the word I'm looking for? You're just like overstimulated with all this information, and your body's probably pretty beat up too if you are training that frequently. So just take a step back, take a pause, realize that you don't have to be there every day to get better. You just don't. If you can only make it 1 day a week, do it. If you can only make it twice a month, do it. But make sure you're doing it consistently, and that should really help you out. So as always, I appreciate you watching these videos. I'm planning to put more of them out, maybe on a more consistent basis, just to share some tips, tricks, different topics, training topics, things that I've found through my own personal experiences as, you know, a Jiu Jitsu Black Belt, former cop of over a decade, and a trainer. I just want to share as much knowledge as I can to give you some things to think about, and again, to hopefully help you progress as a grappler, as an instructor. Any way I can help you out, that's what I'm here for. So please go check out the Jiu Jitsu Five-O app. If you are a beginner, we do have a whole beginner series in the app that covers everything from fundamental positions, movements, concepts. I think you'll find a lot of value in that. You can download it for both iOS and Android. You can also sign up online, so you can access content on computer, laptop, whatever, plus your mobile phone. So we make it pretty easy Tons of training content in there for Jiu Jitsu 5-O members. It's pretty, affordable. We've got some different membership levels that you can subscribe to based on budgets and whatever it is that you're looking to do. But please go check that out, download it, try it free for 7 days. We'd really appreciate it. And then if you want to follow us around social media, obviously we're on most of the major platforms. And if you want to subscribe to this YouTube channel, that would be great. Again, we'll be putting out a lot more videos like this here in the very near future. Thanks again for watching, and we hope to see you on the mats. Go train. Os.